My name is Victoria. I'm 32 years old, and I've spent the last 8 years becoming someone my family refused to see. The mahogany courthouse doors opened with ceremonial weight, and I felt every gaze in the crowded gallery find me. My younger brother Marcus sat rigid at the defendant's table, his tailored suit creased from his night in lockup, his attorney murmuring urgently beside him. Behind him, our parents clung together with the desperate grip of people whose entire identity had been built around their prodigy son's achievements. Not one of them had contacted me when Marcus was arrested. Not when federal charges were filed. Not when his tech company's government contracts came under investigation for fraud. They'd only reached out 3 days ago when his bail hearing loomed, needing someone, anyone, to testify to his character. Victoria still owes us that. I'd heard my mother say in a voicemail she'd accidentally left while speaking to my father. She might be a failure, but she's blood. A failure. The label had haunted me through childhood like a persistent shadow, whispered at family gatherings when my achievements fell short of Marcus, declared openly when I enlisted instead of pursuing law school as they'd demanded. It was the final words my father spoke to me before I left for basic training 8 years ago. I hope you're satisfied being this family's failure. I hadn't spoken to them since. Now, as I moved down the courthouse's central aisle, I could sense their bewilderment. My mother's eyes followed my progress, absorbing the pristine navy uniform, the assured bearing, the way other attendees, people in expensive suits and military dress, acknowledged me respectfully as I passed. She appeared confused, almost insulted, as though I were somehow masquerading in a world beyond my station. The prosecutor, Janet Morrison, sharp-eyed and familiar from previous collaborations, caught my attention and offered an almost imperceptible nod. We'd planned this moment meticulously. Marcus' case transcended simple embezzlement. It involved selling classified intelligence to foreign entities. Intelligence he'd accessed through his government contracts. Intelligence that had compromised active operations and endangered assets. My assets. Judge Harrison assumed his position and silence blanketed the room. The court will now hear character witnesses for defendant Marcus Chin. My father rose first, his voice trembling as he extolled his son's brilliance, his technological contributions, his promising future. My mother followed, tearful and imploring, portraying Marcus as a misunderstood genius who'd merely made unfortunate business choices. Then Marcus's college roommate testified, followed by his business partner and 3 others who spoke of his charitable work and community service. Each testimony felt like another betrayal of truth, another layer of the golden child mythology that had suffocated our family for decades. When they concluded, Judge Harrison looked up. "Does the prosecution wish to present witnesses?" "Yes, Your Honor." The prosecution calls Victoria Chin. The silence that followed was absolute. I watched color drain from my mother's face as comprehension dawned. My father's jaw dropped. Marcus, for the first time since I'd entered the courtroom, turned to face me directly, his confident smirk dissolving into bewilderment. I rose and approached the witness stand, my hand steady as I placed it on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. The whole truth, nothing but the truth. "Please state your name and occupation for the record," Morrison said. "Victoria Chin. I'm a special agent with the FBI's Counterintelligence Division." The words struck the courtroom like a physical blow. Behind me, I heard my mother gasp. My father made a strangled sound. Marcus stared at me as though I were a complete stranger, which I realized I was. "Agent Chin, how long have you served with the Bureau?" 8 years. I joined after completing my service with Army Intelligence. "And your current assignment?" "I lead a joint task force focused on preventing the theft and sale of classified government technology to foreign entities." Morrison nodded. "Agent Chin, are you familiar with the defendant?" I looked directly at Marcus, holding his stare. "Yes. He's my brother." The following 20 minutes became a careful choreography of classified and unclassified information. I testified about the investigation, the months of surveillance, the evidence that led to Marcus' arrest. I spoke in the calm, measured tone I'd perfected through years of briefing senators and cabinet members. But internally, I was 8 years old again, watching my parents radiate pride as Marcus claimed another science fair victory, while barely acknowledging my own second-place ribbon. "Agent Chin," Morrison continued, "in your professional opinion, does the defendant pose a flight risk?" "Absolutely. The defendant has established contact with foreign handlers in 3 different countries. He maintains offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands and Switzerland, and based on our surveillance, he was preparing to flee the country the day following his arrest. I watched Marcus's attorneys scribbling frantically, saw my parents gripping each other's hands until their knuckles whitened. They were beginning to understand that this wasn't their disappointing daughter pretending to be important. This was someone else entirely, someone they'd never bothered to know. Thank you, Agent Chen. No further questions. Marcus' lawyer rose for cross-examination. But what could he ask? How could he challenge the credibility of an FBI counterintelligence agent without obliterating his client's case entirely? Agent Chen, he began cautiously, isn't it true that you and your brother have been estranged? Yes. Isn't it possible that personal animosity is influencing your professional judgment? I smiled. The same expression I'd employed in interrogation rooms with foreign operatives. The one that conveyed I possessed knowledge they couldn't fathom. Counselor, my personal feelings don't fabricate offshore bank accounts or generate communications with known foreign intelligence operatives. The evidence speaks for itself. When I left the witness stand, the courtroom remained silent except for the soft sound of my mother weeping. I returned to my seat in the gallery, and this time every gaze that tracked my movement held a different quality. Respect. Fear. Recognition. Following the hearing, I stood in the courthouse corridor, reviewing messages from my team on my phone. My parents approached tentatively, looking like foreigners in their own existence. Victoria, my mother whispered. Is it true? Are you really? My name is Victoria, I said without lifting my eyes from my phone. And yes, it's true. My father cleared his throat. We had no idea. You never told us. You never asked. I finally looked at them, these people who'd raised me but never truly knew me. In 8 years, neither of you inquired about my work. You assumed I was still the failure who couldn't match Marcus' potential. But sweetheart, my mother said, reaching toward me, if we'd known you were so successful, you would have what? Been proud of me? Loved me? I shook my head. I didn't achieve success for you. I achieved it despite you. Marcus appeared then, escorted by his lawyer and 2 federal marshals. His bail had been denied. He would remain in custody pending trial, facing 25 years in federal prison. As they led him past us, he stopped. Victoria, he said, using the diminutive name that had always made me feel insignificant. You have to understand I never intended for anyone to be harmed. People were harmed, Marcus. Assets were compromised. Operations were exposed. Colleagues I've worked with for years had to be extracted from dangerous situations because of the intelligence you sold. I stepped closer to him, close enough that only he could hear my next words. And my name is Special Agent Chen. The marshals led him away, and I watched my parents' reality crumble in real time. Everything they'd believed about their children, about success, about worth, all of it was collapsing around them. Victoria, my father said, his voice shattered. I'm sorry. We're both sorry. We were wrong about you. I studied his face, searching for something I'd needed to see there for 32 years. But apologies offered only when compelled by circumstances aren't genuine apologies at all. I know you are, I said quietly. But sorry doesn't erase 8 years of silence. Sorry doesn't undo 32 years of being told I wasn't enough. My phone buzzed. A text from my director. Excellent work on the Chen case. Need you back in D.C. tomorrow for NSC briefing. The National Security Council. Another meeting in the Situation Room. Another briefing for people who shaped policy at government's highest levels. Another day in the life my family had never bothered to inquire about. I looked at my parents one final time. These strangers who'd given me life but never really understood me. I have a flight to catch, I said. Take care of yourselves. As I walked away, I heard my mother call out, Will we see you again? I paused at the courthouse doors. The same doors I'd entered an hour ago as their disappointing daughter, and was now exiting as someone they couldn't have imagined. Maybe, I said, when you learn how to love the daughter you have, not the one you wished you'd had. The winter air struck my face as I stepped outside, and I breathed deeply for the first time in months. Behind me, the courthouse contained the wreckage of my brother's life and my parents' assumptions. Ahead of me waited a car that would transport me to the airport, then back to D.C., back to work that mattered, back to the life I'd constructed one case at a time. My phone rang, my partner calling with updates on our next operation. As I answered, I caught my reflection in the courthouse windows. The woman gazing back wasn't the failure my family had conjured in their minds. She was someone who briefed presidents, who thwarted foreign intelligence operations, who carried secrets that could destabilize governments. She was someone I was proud to be. "Chun here," I said into the phone. And for the first time in 8 years, speaking my name felt like returning home to myself. The courthouse diminished in the rearview mirror as my car departed, taking with it the final remnants of the girl who desperately craved her family's approval. In her place sat a woman who discovered that the most potent revenge wasn't destroying those who'd underestimated her. It was becoming someone so extraordinary that their dismissal revealed more about them than it ever had about her.